You are the butt of jokes because of your accent. The Africans hate you because your ancestors colonized them. The Irish don't like you either. Even though you have Doctor Who and Gordon Ramsay, television still portrays you with the same stereotypes: tea, bulldogs, and bad teeth. But that's your life today. You are a British person, working as an employee with a so-so salary. You still have to sing God Save the Queen, even though your life is clearly far more miserable than the royal family. You're basically a modern peasant. Ever imagined what it would be like to live as a peasant in the 14th century? Maybe not necessarily rich. At least the crops in your field keep growing. And if you also raise livestock, your sheep become delicious lamb chops that you can sell. Prosperous, right? Well, no. Misfortune has haunted you since birth if you were born into a 14th century peasant family. Oh yeah, more specifically the 14th century on English soil. At that time, peasants made up 90% of the English population. And of course, the land they worked was not always theirs. Perhaps you are familiar with the terms serf and villein, or who knows, maybe you were one of them. Serf and villein had some differences, including their fate. However, regardless of your position, there was a fundamental similarity. You were not free to move. Your life was in the hands of the landowner, who lived in a luxurious manner. If the land was sold, you were sold with it. Sounds like slavery? No. It's a promotion. Plus, you're still white. Even when the land wasn't sold, you still couldn't go anywhere. You want to change residence? You can, but first, pay a fine to your landlord. You want to marry your sweetheart who lives outside the manor? Oh, be prepared to be fined. What, your child wants to go to school? Fine. And that's not all. The hard-to-swallow pill at the time was the feudal system that made it impossible for you to ever become rich. After exhausting labor without pay on your lord's field, you go home to cultivate your small piece of land. That's right, you are still allowed to have land. As a peasant, you should be grateful that you can see the beauty of your lord's manor, even if it's only on work days. In fact, you must serve the manor owner in a unique way. Remember your small plot of land? Don't rush to celebrate because you still have to hand over 10% of the harvest as tax. Who receives that 10%? Of course, the landlord who owns the manor where you work. Oh, pardon me, not all of it. The harvest is also received by the church and tax collectors as a form of fine for other things. I know what you're thinking. This is unfair. Exactly. That's why the government implemented a poll tax, and the good news is, this poll tax was equal for both nobles and peasants. If a nobleman paid about 50 gold coins, you also had to pay that much. You are choked by taxes, you are heavily in debt, and you are certainly living in endless poverty. Oh yes, you work, drenched in sweat and dirt, for something you will never possess in your lifetime. Strangely, you persevere, not because you are a masochist, but because you have no choice. Life is annoying? How about we talk about death? You, a peasant, do not live in a house made of stone. Your place is a dark wooden hut without glass windows, only a small ventilation hole. The roof made of straw, the floor is dirt. Every time you enter, the smell of rat turds greets you, and fleas jump onto your feet. In winter, your livestock also seek shelter inside the hut. They sleep near you just to escape the cruel weather. And during that winter, of course, you know that they not only sleep, but also eat and do the nature's call. Congratulations, your cramped place is now increasingly filled with unpleasant odors. Every time you step and touch, vicious germs are lurking. Not just inside the hut. Even when you just want to enjoy the beauty of nature and the cool morning air, it feels like a luxury. Your friendly neighbor usually goes to the loo, but literally do it on the street in front of your hut. That's right, in the modern era, you are a Westerner proud to have a toilet. But this is 14th century England. A proper sanitation has not been felt by the common people, perhaps not even invented at all. Disease is your close friend, closer than your family relationships strained by the super unfair feudal system. Not a day goes by without itchy skin. Even if you can survive this difficult situation, your child might not. Due to poor sanitation, the infant mortality rate is very high. If your baby does survive, then you must be ready to say goodbye to them before they reach the age of 50. That is, if you are still alive and don't share the same fate. While the royal soldiers are fighting strange creatures in the forest or busy warring with other kingdoms, you have your own battle against parasites, infections, and various skin diseases. If the diseases in your body aren't satisfying enough, then let's turn to diseases in your crops. You have struggled to farm, praying for good results. Unfortunately, the rainy season is too cruel. It drowns the harvest, along with your hopes. Of course, drought will result in a similar failure. After all, drought is a ghost under the scorching sun. Even if your crops survive both, pests are still the main enemy. Can you imagine those rats running around destroying your beautiful grain? The gap between the old harvest and the new harvest is very long, so if you have a crop failure, you have no choice but to sell the remaining seed reserve, or maybe sell whatever is in your hut. If not, be prepared to starve to death. Surely you don't want to be one of the thousands of peasants who died from the Great Famine, do you? In almost every civilization, farmers play a dual role, as food suppliers, and on other days, as soldiers. One day, the kingdom wants to go to war against France. You, who are still working in the field, are approached by royal soldiers and recruited. It's time to say goodbye to your family, because you might fall on the battlefield. Oh, you won? Still, when you return home, you find your field is dead. While your lord in the manor enjoys the profits of military victory, you are still living miserably, because from the start, you were just a number that could be sacrificed. Not to mention the sad fact that because of your status, you cannot get justice for anything. Yes, the law will only benefit the nobles, including the owner of the manor you serve. When they make a mistake, of course, they will not be punished. They are the ones who make the laws. You are a serf and a victim of crime? Forget it. There is no benefit in demanding justice because everything will turn against you. The manor owner even monitors small things like the transactions you make. So don't expect justice to side with you. Heck, even if the decision in court sounds very unfair, you can't appeal to anyone. Not to the chief judge, not to the king. Yes, your problem will never reach the palace. Everything is stuck under the hammer of the landlord. And when you are found guilty, whoosh, your life is gone. You, who only hoped for justice, end up in the hands of the executioner. Or do you want another way to die? Introducing the Black Death. Oh yes, a great tragedy that produced many literary works in the future. The year is 1348. You, who were living miserably, suddenly witness hundreds of people dying within days. Your neighbors, your landlord, even your parents and siblings are killed by a great plague that you don't understand. One morning, you hear there is a disease spreading from Crimea, then arriving in London. Your family suddenly has fever for days and vomits blood. Their necks are swollen, and other parts of the body turn black and rot. On the first day, you are very worried. On the second day, you can only cry. On the third day, you are infected too. The following days, you see a group of people with scary raven masks, announcing that the person next to you will not survive long. For you who don't understand anything about sanitation and medicine, you can only believe what people around you say, that this is the wrath of God. From a spiritual perspective, maybe it's not wrong. God might be punishing your landlord for being unjust. But why are you also getting this terrible punishment? Miraculously, you survive. Maybe God heard your prayer, or indeed heard the cries over the injustice you have felt all this time. You live, while millions of other English citizens have to end up in mass graves. Unfortunately, your struggle to live is far from over. This unfair life leads you to join a farmer named Wat Tyler and carry out the action in 1381 called the Peasants' Revolt. Your demands are simple: abolish taxes and provide a more decent life. It's natural for you to rebel. After the plague, your wages had risen and your life was slightly better. But the greedy manor owner seemed envious and created a law that made your high wages a crime. How crazy! When King Richard II hears about this problem, he gives you a false promise of a meeting, orders troops to suppress you, and you see Wat Tyler executed. A feudal end to the struggle. Yes, in the end, it's all the same. In the modern era or the 14th century, your life on English soil is not prosperous at all. The rich laugh while you suffer. You are a peasant. The difference is, in the 14th century, you could die in the dirt.